Address of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says the reign of reason must come to an end only with the advent of the psychic law which manifests the divine will. The more one develops the psychic, the more it is possible for the grace to act with love and blessing, says our Divine Mother. A note on the four realization of Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo's yoga and spiritual philosophy are founded on four great realizations. Two of these he had realized in full before his coming to Pondicherry in 1910. The first, the realization of the silent, spaceless, and timeless Brahman he had gained while meditating with Lele in 1908. The feeling and perception of the total unreality of the world, which at first attended this realization, disappeared after the second realization, which was gained in the Alipur jail in 1908 to 1909, the realization of the cosmic consciousness and the vision of the divine as all beings and as all that is. In his meditations in the jail, Sri Aurobindo was already on his way to the other two realizations, that of the supreme reality with the static and dynamic Brahman as its two aspects, and that of the higher planes of consciousness leading to the supermind. By 1912, the third realization was attained when Lord Sri Aurobindo experienced an abiding realization and dwelling in Parabrahman, the Supreme Reality. The process of ascent into the higher planes of consciousness and of bringing down the power of those planes into the physical consciousness continued. On 24th November 1926, this effort was crowned by the descent of the Godhead of the Overmind, the highest of the planes between mind and supermind, into the physical. This descent was preparatory to the descent of the supermind itself, by which the perfection dreamed of by all that is highest in humanity can come. From 1926, our Lord Sri Aurobindo worked spiritually to bring about the supramental descent, and in 1950 left his physical body to hasten its advance. Next topic, the Supreme Discovery. Early writings of our Divine Mother in 1912. Our Divine Mother says, if we want to progress integrally, we must build within our conscious being a strong and pure mental synthesis which can serve us as a protection against temptations from outside, as a landmark to prevent us from going astray, as a beacon to light our way across the moving ocean of life. Our Divine Mother says, each individual should build up this mental synthesis according to his own tendencies and affinities and aspirations. But if we want it to be truly living and luminous, it must be centered on the idea that the intellectual representation symbolizing that which is at the center of our being, that which is our life and our light. This idea, expressed in sublime words, has been taught in various forms by all the great instructors in all lands and ages. The self of each one and the great universal self are one. Since all that is exists from all eternity in its essence and principle, why make a distinction between the being and its origin, between ourselves and what we place at the beginning? The ancient traditions rightly said, our origin and ourselves, our God and ourselves are one. And this oneness should not be understood merely as more or less close and intimate relationship of union, but as a true identity. Thus, when a man who seeks the divine attempts to reascend by degrees towards the inaccessible, he forgets that all of his knowledge and all his intuition cannot take him one step forward in this infinite, neither does he know what that he wants to attain, what he believes to be so far from him is within him. For how could he know anything of the origin until he becomes conscious of this origin in himself? It is by understanding himself, by learning to know himself, that he can make the supreme discovery and cry out in wonder, like the patriarch in the Bible, "The house of God is here, and I knew it not." That is why we must express that sublime thought, creatrix of the material worlds, and make known to all the word that fills the heavens and the earth. I am in all things and all beings. When all shall know this, the promised day of the great transformation and transfiguration will be at hand, when in each atom of matter men shall recognize the indwelling thought of God, when in each living creature they shall perceive some hint of a gesture of God, when each man can see God in his brother, then dawn will break, dispelling the darkness, the falsehood, the ignorance, the error, and suffering that weigh upon the nature. For all nature suffers and laments as she awaits the revelations of the sons of God. Our Divine Mother says this indeed is the central thought, epitomizing all others, the thought which should be ever present to our remembrance as the sun that illumines all life. That is why I remind you of it today. For if we follow our path, bearing this thought in our hearts like the rarest jewel, the most precious treasure, if we allow it to do its work of illumination and transfiguration within us, we shall know that it lives in the center of all beings and all things, and in it we shall feel the marvelous oneness of the universe. Our Divine Mother says, then we shall all understand the vanity and childishness of our mere satisfactions, our foolish quarrels, our petty passions, our blind indignations. We shall see the dissolution of our little faults, the crumbling of the last entrenchments of our limited personality and our obtuse egoism. We shall feel ourselves being swept along by this sublime current of true spirituality, which will deliver us from our narrow limits and bounds. The individual self and the universal self are one. In every world, in every being, and in everything, in every atom is the divine presence, and man's mission is to manifest it. In order to do that, he must become conscious of this divine presence within him. Some individuals must undergo real apprenticeship in order to achieve this. Their egoistic being is too all absorbing, too rigid, too conservative, and their struggles against it are long and painful. Others, on the contrary, who are more impersonal, more plastic, more spiritualized, come easily into contact with the inexhaustible divine source of their being. But let us not forget that they too should devote themselves daily, constantly to a methodical effort of adaptation and transformation, so that nothing within them may ever again obscure the radiance of that pure light. But how greatly the standpoint changes once we attain this deeper consciousness, how understanding widens, how compassion grows. Our Divine Mother says, Let us all live by this beautiful utterance, and we shall see everything around us transformed as if by a miracle. This is the attitude of true, conscious, discerning love, the love which knows how to see behind appearances, understand in spite of words, and which, amid all obstacles, is in constant communion with the depths. What value have our impulses in our desires, our anguish, our violence, our sufferings, our struggles, all these inner vicissitudes unduly dramatized by our untruly imagination? What value do they have before this great, this sublime divine love, bending over us for the innermost depths of our being, bearing with our weakness, rectifying our errors, healing our wounds, bathing our whole being with its regenerating streams? Our Divine Mother says, "For the inner Godhead never imposes herself, she never demands nor threatens, she offers and gives herself, conceals and forgets herself in the heart of all beings and things. She never accuses, she never judges, nor curses, nor condemns, but works unceasingly to perfect without constraint, to mend without reproach, to encourage without impatience, to enrich each one with all the wealth he can receive. She is the mother whose love bears fruit and nourishes, guards and protects, counsels and consoles, because she understands everything. She can endure everything, excuse and pardon everything, hope and prepare for everything, bearing everything within herself. She owns nothing that she does not belong to all, and because she reigns over all, she is the servant of all. That is why all great and small who wants to be kings with her, gods in her, become like her, not despots but servitors among their brethren. How beautiful is this humble role of servant, the role of all who have been revealers and heralds of the God, who is within all of the divine love that animates all things. And until we can follow their example, become true servants even as they, let us allow ourselves to be penetrated and transformed by this divine love. Let us offer Him without reserve this marvelous instrument, our physical organism. He shall make it yield its utmost on every plane of activity. To achieve this total self consecration, all means are good. All methods have their values. The one thing needful is to persevere in our will to attain this goal. For then everything we study, every action we perform, every human being we meet, all come to bring us an indication, a help, a light to guide us on the path, says our Divine Mother.